When I think about GTA Online and its DLCs, I often wonder what is really still possible in this game that hasn't been done before. Between all the different heists and the content updates we've gotten over the last couple of years, it's difficult to see what Rockstar can still do, especially with the console limitations. Surprisingly enough, it seems that Rockstar still has plenty of good ideas, the Tunas DLC being the most recent example of this. But the Contract DLC is something that I never really saw coming. What Rockstar has done with the Contract DLC is effectively given us a single player experience within GTA Online. The reason I'm saying this is because I found myself forgetting at times that I'm actually playing GTA Online, especially during the short trip missions. It generally happened that I was playing the short trip missions and I had forgotten that I had someone from my Twitch chat playing with me. That isn't because Keeler is such a forgettable person, it's simply because it felt like I was playing single player. The classic Rockstar dialogue and banter in this update just proved to me that Rockstar still knows what it's doing in that department, because the banter between Franklin and Lamar is just so good. Even outside of the short trip missions, the dialogue and the cutscenes are just simply great. I would love to give you examples of this, but honestly, I don't really want to ruin the surprises for those who haven't played it yet.
What's so him, nigga?
And of course, I can't close this segment without talking about the main man himself, Dr. Dre. Arguably one of the coolest things in gaming, to not only see and be around Dr. Dre, but being able to see him work in the studio and seeing an actual song develop and flourish in front of your very eyes. And then to have everything feel so natural is just a testament to how much care went into this DLC's dialogue to make sure that it actually felt authentic. The DLC's story just feels like everyone was just having fun and were happy to be there when recording the cutscenes and the dialogue for it. It really shows, and it's honestly a great vibe all around. When it comes to the missions of the DLC, I have to say that they were pretty good fun too. The only contract where I wasn't all that super hyped about is definitely going to be the South Central League. While it made sense from a story point of view and really added to the whole thing that Franklin wants to get back into the gangbanging stuff, it's definitely the least interesting in terms of the gameplay. The other two contracts definitely had more difficulty to them and thus make them more interesting. Overall, the missions weren't really doing anything new and were pretty standard. One thing that I do find a bit of a shame though is that during the Dr. Dre missions, you start off pretty strong with some heavy story and the cutscenes and some pretty good missions too, but then you just kind of get sent into the usual GTA Online cycles and you do these missions and then we'll talk to you on the phone and, best of luck to you. Luckily though, you do go back to the quality from the first part of the Dr. Dre missions afterwards where you get back into the storytelling and that sort of stuff. But it's just a bit of a shame to have a dual-ish kind of middle bit. It would also have been nice to have a little bit more dialogue or involvement from Dr. Dre in this middle section other than the
"Hey, Dre wants to say something." I hear you, dog.
Alright, listen, Franklin here tells me we've got 2 copies down. Good work. We still have 1 more to go. Alright, Franklin, here's your phone.
Hey, good looking, dog.
As for the security and payphone contract missions, they're pretty good fun, aside from the asset protection security contract. Asset protection just really isn't an interesting mission at all. If this mission was like 5 minutes long, then maybe it would have been okay, but 10 minutes of an infinite wave of enemies that you just shoot off their bike as they arrive just isn't really all that interesting. I even went as far as to buy some armor and ammo at the ammunition during the mission, and I was still fine. There doesn't really seem to be a huge threat against the AI enemies. They're just ramping towards the targets. They don't really seem to pose much of a threat and just kind of very uninteresting and dull. I really hope that they would have done something a little bit more interesting with this. Maybe even a moving target and trying to protect them while doing drive-bys or anything along those lines would have been vastly more interesting than standing in one circle and just sometimes auto-locking onto an enemy. I have to say though that I've definitely enjoyed playing the payphone assassination missions, being by far the best and the most interesting missions out of the DLC. It's a lot of fun to do these missions in different and unique ways instead of just going over there with your Oppressor Mark II and pressing the nuke button a couple of times. While there is only, I believe, 3 or 4 different missions, there are obviously all kinds of different variations to do these missions, which does make them more interesting. So hopefully Rockstar will decide to add a few more in the future, but considering the fact that Rockstar doesn't like to go back to old DLCs and add new stuff, I highly doubt that is going to be a case. So maybe we'll get something similar, but in either a mission or anything along those lines. It would be great to see more like this, because it's honestly a lot of fun. 2 things I would definitely change about these contracts though is, first of all, the cooldowns. Why do I have to wait 20 minutes to play my next payphone assassination? Is Rockstar really that afraid we'll be making money in a different way than Kuiper Rico? Sure, these are easy missions, but have you seen how easy and optimized Kuiper Rico is? People literally heat their boat on the island now and consistently complete the finale in like 5 minutes. There's no competing with Kuiper Rico, and these missions, even if you were to do them like 5 minutes at the time, you would still not be making as much as you would in Kuiper Rico. The other thing I would love to change in a heartbeat is the accuracy of the enemies. Holy the amount of times I've been lasered through bushes and whatnot when an enemy had no business of knowing where I was or was able to see me is absolutely abysmal. It just straight up isn't fun. It just is not, no. I know that GTA Online's AI can either be Steamroll Cannon Fodder or Arnie the Terminator, but hot damn, Rockstar, try to find a better middle ground, because this kind of AI is just straight up not fun. I even got lasered off my Oppressor Mark II for crying out loud because I was trying to find a different way of approach instead of just getting lasered to death as soon as I spawn. A micro SMG really isn't that powerful of a weapon, but for some reason if it's in the hand of an enemy AI, it turns into a freaking minigun. Arguably though, the biggest disappointment for me in this DLC is going to be the EMP launcher. Man, this thing could have been and should have been so much more. Instead, we've got a gun shooting wet tiles, and it ends up being more disappointing than the Valentine's Days I've had over the past 27 years. The stun gun, it's fine, nothing really to complain about there. The balancing changes that they have done it from the single player version do make sense in order to prevent people from spamming it, which is ironic considering the fact how much stuff we have in the game that actually do allow us to spam, but I digress. The heavy rifle though, I hoped would have been a little bit more unique, but it ended up being kind of another dime with a dozen assault rifle. It's usable, but The next week, the special carbine will be back in everyone's hands, in my opinion. As for vehicles, I am a fan of them. They drive well, I enjoyed racing with them, and especially the Buffalo STX is by far my favorite out of the bunch. It has no business of being in the muscle class, but it does handle like a dream. I think in a sports class it would have done very well too, kind of being in the mid-pack, and in terms of performance it wouldn't have completely shattered the muscle class, which is a bit of a shame, but you know, it is what it is. The introduction of the anti-lock camo and the big explosive resistance armor is also a very welcome change. But like with everything they introduce like this, they limit it to 4 vehicles and call it a day. It's very frustrating that they haven't added this to more vehicles than just these DLC vehicles. I really wish Rockstar would be more willing to go back to old DLCs and content and just add stuff like this to it, because it's a really big quality of life change that unfortunately they seem to be limiting to you having to buy an agency and then an expensive car and then an auto shop, and then you would be finally able to not be locked on by Oppressor Mark II. Obviously, you also have your icon on the map, so anyone with half a brain that is riding one of these Suppressor Mark II grieving you will probably know that it's probably a terrible idea to even try to engage with you because of these two reasons. So yeah, I hope that maybe they would have added it to some more vehicles that potentially might even need some more love, and hopefully because of that will then get some more love because they have a reason to be used yet again. Speaking of which, actually, the update to the tuner's reputation is actually very nice. I've gotten into some more detail about this already in a different video, but honestly it's nice to see Rockstar actually listening to feedback, even though it's 4 months later and I'm pretty sure that everyone is already AFK'd or glitched away to maximum rank at this point. Regardless, I hope that they will make some more positive changes like this within the future, just as long as they don't accidentally nerf the entire tuners class again. So to wrap it up, Rockstar, I feel, has done a great job with this DLC, and I really hope they will continue to make more story-driven DLCs like this. The Contract DLC gave me hope for the future of GTA Online, especially considering with Expanded and Enhanced, Rockstar has more room to expand the DLCs in size. I just really hope that they won't make 20-minute cooldowns the standard on content that I actually want to play. I mean, I'm playing GTA Online and not Red Dead Online after all. That game sure loves putting you in 45-minute cooldowns on the content I actually enjoy playing. But those are just some of my thoughts, of course. I would love to know what you think down in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and if you really like what you see on the channel, consider becoming a member like Chloe, Robert, Captain Price, Madman Dakota, and Shapeshift Gaming. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all later.